This is a demonstration of the Swan-350. This rig was popular in the late 1960s, possibly as much as the early 1970s. This does not have a lot of things that current rigs do have. There is no side tone oscillator, so if you're on CW, you're just going to hear clicks. It does not have AM to speak of, although it points out in the manual that you can take the carrier balance and off adjust it or misbalance it and give you carrier and one sideband. It only has one sideband per band. It is a 5-band rig. Its predecessor, the Swan-240, which I owned, only had 3 bands. So this has 5 bands. It doesn't have filtering, so if you're on CW, you can't get rid of the QRM. That's not going to happen. It, of course, does not have RIT and many of those other features that we have in rigs today. And it isn't automatically tuned. So that is another feature. You have to tune it. There are 4 tuning controls, as you can see over in this corner, to allow you to tune it up. Another thing that was common with Swans is that prior to tuning it up, you had to adjust all the tuning controls for maximum gain on receive. So I'm tuning it up for maximum gain. And so that gives me the maximum gain. So I should be close to being tuned up, but sometimes it isn't all that close. So I will put it in the... also doesn't seem to have automatic gain control. If you listen to the sideband contacts I'm going to make in the following this description, you will see that the volume does go up and down quite a bit. It has AF and RF gain control, and if you look at the bands, it has 10 meters, but for 15 and 40 meters you just have to kind of go on this blue thing, and it doesn't give you the exact frequency, and then 40 or 75 and 20 meters are delineated up above. So we'll try and tune it up. You set it up for 50 mils of base current. You also, if you put it in the sideband position, which I'm doing with this microphone, you set the carrier balance up, and there's very little change. I don't know if you can actually even see the change. So it's you really can't bring in the carrier that much, which probably is a good thing. So now I'll put it in the tune position, and it's pretty well tuned up already. I had pretty much tuned it up, but there it is. You can see I've peaked it there. It's over 100 watts. Supposedly, this is supposed to only be 500 mils, so I'm way up what I'm supposed to be. So I'm going to back off on the loading here. Now it's down to around, there we go. It's still up at 650 mils. I got to back this down. This is way too high. We'll back that down a little more. Okay, now we're up. We're not in too bad a shape here. We're at 300 mils, and you adjust the grid for maximum. That seems to be pretty broad, and there we go. I'll bring that up. We're around 350 mils, and you see it's kind of a balancing act here. I'll put this up a little bit and see what we get. There we go. We get a little more juice, but we're up around 500 mils, and just the grid up a little. Whoa, we don't want to bring up the cathode current too much. So we're a little over 500 mils, and with these old tubes, or with these type of tubes, you can't hold that down for too long. 30 seconds is the maximum, and so you don't want to hold that down for too long. So that's tuning it up on, happens to be tuning it up on 15 meters. That was a little trickier than some of the other bands. It's being fed right now into a high tower vertical. We'll try another band. We'll try 40 meters and see how that works out. See if I can find a signal and adjust this for maximum gain that I can hear on the receiver. Here we go. Alright, so I'm going to tune off of this a little bit, so if I tune up, I'm not tuning up on them. And we'll see how close we are to being tuned up. Put this in the tune position, and not too bad. We're already putting out a fair amount of juice. I'm going to back this off a little bit and see how we do. Yeah, that's better. Way better. Oh, but 800 mils. I'm going to back the loading all the way down. And okay, now we're drawing about 300 mils. I'll pick up the grid current a little bit, draw this up a little, bring up the loading a little more, and I'll bring that up a little more and see how we do. Okay, we're about 400 mils. That's I think where I'm going to leave it. I don't want to stress the tube. Now, if you want to send CW, not so easy. I'll show you what I mean. You're not going to hear a side tone. I throw it into the CW position, and I don't know if you can hear that slight little hum, but there's no side tone oscillator. That's it. There's no side tone oscillator. We'll tune it down into the CW portion of the band. Obviously, there's a RIDI contest on today. See if we can get past that. Doesn't sound too bad on CW, but there's no filter. I can't filter out the other station. That's not going to happen. So you pretty much have to deal with that. So that's my short demonstration on the Swan-350, and you'll see a couple of contacts coming up just after this.
Anyway, you're 20 over 9. You're 20 over 9 in the Chicago area here. And we're running a TS570 Delta, running barefoot, 100 watts. And the antenna is a Treffy hex beam, so that's the complement today. K1 OIK, here is WA9RHD, over.
WA9RHD, here is K1 OIK. Okay, good copy. You are really booming in here. You've got a great signal. I'm using a rig that's older than whatever. Let's see, how old is it? I think it came out in the late 60s. It's a Swan-350, and I'm not sure exactly how much power it runs. I think it's running about 150 to 200 watts output. I'm guessing it's at least that. It's probably that. So back to you, WA9, and you have a great sound. WA9RHD, K1OIK.
Okay, K1OIK, here's WA9RHD, very fine birds. You know, like I say, this probably isn't enough on the bands, and I don't want to tell you what I did when I was younger here, but anyway, I am very familiar with the Swan-350, so that's my story here. The Swan-350 was actually my first transceiver that I ever had, and that is the rig that I ended up with and sold when I went off the air somewhere in the 80s there. But I did enjoy the Swan-350. It sounds great. Your audio sounds real good, so you know, I would say that you know, you're doing a good job. But yeah, I guess the older rigs don't have some of the niceties that some of the newer rigs have, although I don't have a lot of filters on this thing. I have a narrow filter for sideband, but you know, this being a I would say beginner budget, whatever you want to call it, lower priced rig, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but anyway, let me turn it back to you, Bert. K1 OIK, here is WA9RHD.
And I heard a K1, I believe it was K1 Oscar, India Kilo, is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. Back to you. My name is Bert, Bravo Uniform Romeo Tango, here on 15 meters. Bert is my name, and I'm located on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, Cape Cod. So back to you, K1OIK.
Took me a little time here. K1, Oscar, India, Kilo, Delta 4, Foxtrot, November, India. Good to hear you. You were 20 over 9 coming into Ozark, Alabama. We're about 50 miles from the Florida line. But my friend, you're sounding good. Your audio is coming in mighty fine. Like I said, you're about 20 over. K1, Oscar, India, Kilo, Delta 4, Foxtrot, November, India. Back to you.
Okay, Kilo Delta 4, Foxtrot, November, India. Here on 15, K1OIK, Kilowatt 1 Oscar, India, Kilowatt.